who's in so many ways, I feel like a mentor to me, someone that I look up to, in particular in the journalism space and in that arena in our industry. So for our READefine community, we want to welcome Deborah Douglas. And first, we just want to know a little bit about you and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, thank you, Marquita. So, by day, I'm a professor at Northwestern University. I work at the Medill School of Journalism, Media, and Integrated Marketing. I came back home to Chicago 2.5 years ago to launch something called the Solutions Journalism Hub. So I run this program where I run around the Midwest telling media organizations how to do their jobs better.
Yep.
So Solutions Journalism is an inclusive storytelling practice that is designed to help journalists cover pressing social problems through asset frames and by centering the people who are affected by systemic issues in the story, not writing or filming about them or around them, but with them and to them. So yeah, so I'm on fire for storytelling of all kinds, and that's what I spend my day doing.
Man, I feel like your work is so intertwined, and this book truly makes sense. It's travel guide, what you're up to. So we'll just dive right into it. So with this travel guide, it's such a unique take on, say, a reading experience and a book. And for you, so you have this travel guide, but then you have this activism, kind of historical piece to it too. And so it seems like there's a couple of things happening in one. So how did that come to life?
Yeah, I got really lucky because the Moon Travel Company, which is a part of Hachette, which you know is one of the major publishing companies in the world, they issued a request for proposals to write this book because in about like a year from the due date of the book, the first official civil rights trail in the South was going to be designated, and so they wanted to be able to cover this newly designated space. And so actually my book is the first book ever to follow the official civil rights trail.
The first book ever. Let's have a pause and a clap for that. Because man, first is important.
Well, I thought it was really important for somebody who is a part of the story, whose lineage comes out of the story, has the responsibility and the centering to be able to amplify the story. So there are other people who have written books about the trail, but it's not their story. It's not necessarily a story of their people, or if it is, their people are on a different side of the equation. So I thought it was smart on behalf of Moon to be really intentional about recruiting the right person for this book. So I had to compete to get the contract to write this book.
Okay.
And of course I was like, you shouldn't do this book without me. You need to talk to me first. And I brought a reporter's vision to the book because it's not a traditional travel book. It's not about, oh, let's go here and like party, or let's go here and shop and eat, which all of that is a part of the book. But I really wanted to bring the reporter's lens. And more importantly, I wanted to be able to hold space for our elders, for people who were active in the movement. The work, the actual physical product, but just the work of making the phone calls, making the map, going to the place, connecting with people and talking to people is infused with respect for our elders who brought us to this place, right? And so I talked to foot soldiers who were part of the movement. They were children, they were child activists. And in many cases, like in Birmingham or in Selma, children stood in for when their parents couldn't, because their parents had to work or there was danger attached to being out in the field, being an activist. And Birmingham, of course, there was a intentional decision to make children a part of the movement. James Bevel was like the brainchild of really enlisting children in the movement. And when we think about the images that come out of the Birmingham movement, those black and white images of children being sprayed with water hoses, the barking dogs, the police dogs, the police themselves, you know, all of that imagery, that was part of a definitive and intentional strategy to involve children and to leverage the power of imagery and changing hearts and minds in this country. So I wanted to pay tribute to all of that, because to leave school, to go to a church, to go to an activist space and listen to adults take you through the process of how do you prepare yourself to be a part of a nonviolent direct action movement, how to have someone assault you but not respond, and to be fully grounded in the purpose and the result that you were seeking, to me was a powerful place to stand. You know, I wasn't born during a lot of it. I was a baby in the latter part of the movement. I say in my book that I grew up in the remnant aura of the movement. And so I always sensed a sort of frenetic energy, having been born in Chicago, and I grew up in Detroit, and then I spent time in Memphis with my grandmother growing up too. People didn't necessarily always talk about that time, but I did get a palpable sense of energy in the air that I had to do something. Like, my life had to matter. I had to do something important, that nothing is given. And so to me, to the privilege of researching and reporting this book and making these connections and gathering new grandparents and aunties and uncles along the way is just pulling that through line of that powerful sense of responsibility I just absorbed all my life.
Yeah. Well, I can't even imagine the journey and the road and just the experience that you've been able to really capture and just experience and explore. And I'm sure in so many ways it was just such a roller coaster ride, I'm sure, but then at the same time, like, this is just such a valuable piece of history and things to move forward. For you though, with all of that, like, were there any moments that were really challenging for you, or anything that really was like a highlight, like one of the highest mountaintop highlights for you?
I have a lot of highlights, but I'm going to tell you about the emotional processing part of it. It's not what people think it is. I have been a journalist. This is my 36th year in my profession, and I learned to be a journalist when I was 8. And I read in the encyclopedia, remember those, you know.
I have the Black encyclopedia.
Right?
Right.
Exactly. Right? I read about Columbia School of Journalism in the encyclopedia when I was 10. So I started saying, I'm going to Columbia. And I ended up at Northwestern because my mother didn't want me to go to New York. And she said something about it being the best journalism school. So of course I had to go there. But
listen, I already know.
And now I teach there. But, you know, people wonder if I got really emotional all the way. But the thing is that I'm a professional.
Yeah.
And so I compartmentalize. And so when I'm in work mode, I'm in work mode, and I block everything else out, and I do not bring emotions into it. Okay. I do try to be in tune with my feelings and the feelings of the audience that I'm serving, so that it can power my ability to ask layered questions of the people that I am talking to in the spaces that I'm interrogating. But in terms of being in a position to break down along the way or cry over the keyboard when I'm typing, I just don't do that. And I'm a very sensitive person, probably thin-skinned. Like in my day-to-day life, I'm very super sensitive. I might, like, you know, my friends say I have a hard shell, but like a squishy inside. I'm very squishy on the inside, but when it comes to doing this work, I'm just really focused on the responsibility of the work. So I did not have emotional reactions. I really was really concerned about just telling the most comprehensive story I could in a very compact space, because you can't say everything. I could write volumes, you know, if I were to. So it's like, how do you really honor the word? How do you honor the word, the line, the sentence, the paragraph, the chapter, you know, like that. And I always want to be able to stand in the power of my decision, my narrative decision in the moment when I'm talking to people. So I'm really focused on that. And then I think about it later, and it could be months later, years later, and I might get mad then, but I'll be like, but I'll feel powerful too, because I did something about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, well, honoring the work, it's so many things you can honor, like when you're covering this. Like when it comes to say like those Black businesses and that narrative and some of the stories you were shaping, like how did you direct?
Oh, so two things. So I participated in submitting a proposal. There was a waiting period associated with that, and then I kind of like wooed the editor, like as I was waiting, like developed a relationship with her while I was waiting to see who they chose. Okay. And then after I got the contract, I was like, I have to like be really clear about a few things. I said, I do have some inherent biases that I'm bringing to this story. Okay. And one of them is I have a bias for women, especially Black women. And from what I have heard and what I've learned is that Black women weren't always centered when we're telling the story of the movement, and they didn't always get the shine. And that I'm going to do whatever I can to rectify that. Okay. And I said, and I'm Black all day, and so I'm going to, whenever I can, showcase Black-owned businesses every time I can. And so, for all intents and purposes, in this book and the edition that is coming out in January, the updated edition, I feature Black-owned businesses. And if it's not a Black-owned business, it is because I couldn't find a Black-owned business that fulfilled that category. But if I didn't feature a Black-owned business, then I sought out allies. I sought out people who live and work and thrive according to the tenets of the movement, according to the tenets of Dr. King. So, if I show a white-owned pastry company, it's because they pay a living wage, things like that. Yep. Or they hire formerly incarcerated individuals. Like, you got to be down with the cause to get my book.
Right. So when it comes to down with the cause and the people that you were finding, like how was it, say, gaining the trust in those relationships? Like, do you have any relationship in mind that
you're gonna really bring out the nerd in me? Okay, so I've been around a long time, so over the course of my career, I've developed a lot of sources, and you don't live in one place and move another place and drop everybody. You just add and bring people along. So I have worked all over the country, as far east as Boston and Connecticut, as far south as Mississippi, Arkansas. I've covered Tennessee. So I have lots of rich sources. I have a great migration baby. I grew up in the path of the civil rights movement and the Great Migration. I've developed sources along those routes. I've developed sources as part of my coverage. As a journalist, I am a 2-time founder in the journalism space. I've worked for Legacy Media. I was a manager, at the Chicago Sun-Times. I worked for all of the major companies, Gannett, Thompson, Cap Cities, ABC is where I started my career. But I was the founding managing editor of MLK 50 Justice to Journalism, based in Memphis, Tennessee, which is
pause for that.
Yes, the dopest publication on the planet. And the only thing doper is the other thing I founded, which is the Emancipator. That was the brainchild of Dr. Ibram X. Kendi and Bina Ben Contraman, who was at the Boston Globe at the time, and my lovely partner, Amber Payne, and I are the founding co-editors-in-chief of The Emancipator. And The Emancipator was the nation's first abolitionist newspaper. And what I mean by the first abolitionist newspaper was founded in 1820. It was short-lived. It was run by a very complicated man who owned enslaved Black people. I've been in his house and I've been in the enslaved quarters. But some people will say, oh no, there was another abolitionist paper that was founded before that in Ohio. But they talked about other things. This was abolition and abolition only. So this is the nation's first abolitionist newspaper, and that's all they talked about in that paper. And so that's what qualifies that. So, I have the sources that I've developed according to that. I also happen to be, because I'm a Black journalist and we don't just do one job. I'm a senior leader with the Op-Ed Project. It is a New York-based organization that is dedicated to changing the shape of voice in the public conversation. And what we mean by that is that if you look at the nation's op-ed pages, for many years, women did not have a fair share of voice on those pages. They were overly dominated by male voices. Now, you could say that, you know, it could be because of bias or marginalization, but what if we just got more women writing, right, and sharing their ideas and thoughts? Because that's another side of the equation. There is a way that we're socialized to quiet ourselves and not stand in the power of the things that we know is stone cold. So with the op-ed project, I've been working with them for about 12 years. We work with really brilliant people in academia, in activism, with other kind of grassroots organizations. I've actually done this work around the world. We help people identify the core of what they know is stone cold and expand it to things that they know because their core is tight. You don't want people to amplify on things they don't know where they're talking about. We want you to take what you know you talk about and find ways to talk about it more often and then exercise thought leadership in any way possible. It could be in a book talk, it could be in a neighborhood meeting, it could be the PTA, it could be on television, radio, or the nation's op-ed pages. So for over a decade, I have been working with just wonderful, dope people. 51% of them are female because we won't walk in the room unless it's majority female. You better go find somebody to amplify the shape of voice in public conversation. So I've worked with like amazing people. Our organization has worked with amazing people. The book White Rage by Carol, I can't think of her last name right now, but the original op-ed that she wrote where the book grew out of it, she was part of our Emory University fellowship, working with one of our facilitators, Chloe, and that piece was the most read piece on the Washington Post site that year. And so, yeah, I've worked with like amazing people like Dinah Rainey Berry. She is an enslavement expert. I worked with her for several years at the University of Texas, Austin, but she's now at UC Santa Barbara, and she brought us out there last year, so I headed up that fellowship, getting expert voices out. Dinah Rainey Berry is amazing. She's written in the New York Times many times. She wrote this book called The Price for Their Pound of Flesh, about how Black people were valued during enslavement and how we always valued ourselves. She coined the term soul value because of that. So I'm surrounded by all these brilliant people. I've worked with the Jackson family. I'm a partner with Congressman Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, for many years on amplifying a lot of causes and built websites, and we successfully lobbied for things. And so I've met people through that. So just through my journalism and my own, I've worked with the natural hair care industry to pass a law in the state of Illinois, just Black women showing up in our story. So there was that, and so then, one thing about being effective is believing that you don't know everything, but you can ask people to help you.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes that means you have to be vulnerable to ask for help. And so I asked for a lot of help, and I met the most beautiful people in the process of asking for help. And I met people who make this journey all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one person who helped me significantly is Mia Henry, and she is the founder of Freedom Lifted, a social justice educational organization. And because she had done this trip many, many times, and she was ignited by Bernard Lafayette, who is a soldier in the movement, who I consider like a grandfather because we talked so many times on the phone. like I'm just adopting you.
Right.
I talked to Fred Clark. Is he's not a household name, not like a lot of the bigger names in the movement that we hear. Like everything is MLK, which is fine, but there are other people too. And Fred Clark was a freedom writer, and he was locked in Parchman prison. They locked the freedom writers in Parchman prison. So he's in the book. I tell his story about how they were mistreated, and he was young and he was slight, and they were all mashed in a cell one day, and they were running out of air. And he talked about how he scrambled to the bottom to find a little sliver of air at the bottom of the door. And at the end of our call, Mr. Clark said, "Is you Black or is you white?" I said, Mr. Clark, I'm as black as you.
But again, I feel like that question is valid because he probably was thinking, is this a journalist? Is this a writer?
Well, you know, and I got my white lady voice on the
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to like, you know, keep my back straight and all that stuff and exude credibility.
Yeah.
But in terms of like engendering trust, like I have a really great relationship with Joanne Bland now.
Okay.
Joanne Bland is the founder of the Foot Soldiers Park in Selma. And she has an office that overlooks the Alabama River and the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And she was a young foot soldier. And her sister, Linda Lowry Blackman, was the youngest foot soldier to make the whole journey from Selma to Montgomery. Because, you know, not everybody did the whole 54-mile trek. But she's like a grandmother too. And she's really bossy, and I just love it because it's like, you know, it's so familiar. But Joanne is that person in the community that people call on to help when they need something. So I was there I think it was late last summer, early fall, and I was sitting at her living room table waiting for her to talk to me. She was making phone calls. She was had a pile of muscadine grapes on a plate. It was muscadine season, and she wanted to gobble down just the last bit of them because they were just so good to her. And then a young white woman came and knocked on the door, and she came in while she was moving, and Miss Bland had found some furniture for her. And so she talked to her all about, you know, getting herself together so she could get her start in life. So Joanne Bland is that person in the community that anybody can call to get help. And that kind of help is very familiar to me, having grown up in the South, but also having grown up in the North as part of the Great Migration. You know, a lot of people like to talk about immigrants in this country, but in a way, we're immigrants here. And we had to develop all of these new networks and you know, and adopt new families and make sure people got covered and got fed and found a place to live. So all of that was really very familiar to me too. And so in terms of engendering confidence, really being earnest and intentional in why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking, why I go deeper sometimes, because, you know, old people will be like, why you gotta know all that? And, you know, being really clear on what my goal is and what the intentionality is. And then in the professor side of me, I actually champion something called complicating the narrative, which I learned about from the Solutions Journalism Network, a strategic partner I work with, and Amanda Ripley. And she's a journalist, and it's a deep listening technique that is designed to help people who may not even be good listeners ask questions in a way that even mimic good listening. So it has to do with locking in on what people are saying, sort of repeating back some of the words to get some understanding about what they said before you move to the next question, and using some of the exact language or words that they use, because it's something about hearing a word that you just said that makes you feel heard. And when you level set and you go, do I understand that correctly? You can actually catch misunderstandings or errors. Also, the person feels heard, and then you can ask the next layer of questions. Then you match their energy, like we're matching energy. I'm not all over here and you're all over here, we're like this, right? And then there's something called mirroring, where you mirror their gestures, not in a weird, comical kind of way, but in a way, again, this is all about energy and intention. So I try to practice all my things, so people would trust me.
Well, I learned from the best too, when it comes to that. Man, so for me, like you said, having those moments of, like, you're on the phone, I'm sure a lot of it probably was phone moments. Was there moments for you though that you were able to really say, then step into those places and spaces?
I was on the road a lot.
Now for you, I know with being on the road, were there any moments for you that in this moment you're like, you know what, those are like my top 3 highlights when it came to being on the road? Because that's so much traveling and just
Well, this go around, I added something to the book. It is the Mothers of Gynecology Monument.
Okay.
So the first time I did my research, I was in Montgomery. I took a tour. I try to prioritize black tour owners, and I met Michelle Browder, and so she gave a tour of Montgomery. And Michelle not only has this black focused tour, but she's also an artist. And so we were in downtown Montgomery, and we were at the State House at the bottom, at the foot of it. And if you look up on the hill, you'll see a statue to the right, and it's a statue of Marion Sims, Dr. Marion Sims. He's the father of gynecology. But he built his body of work by testing and torturing black girls and women. I like to be really clear to say girls, because these girls were teenagers, and something about when you get to this teenage stage, and narratives and language, people like to just morph that into adulthood and call them women, and they were not. They were teenagers. Lucy, Betsy, and Anarcha. And so Michelle pointed at that statue, and she's kind of like scoffed, like, why is that there? And she's right. And also his office is memorialized down in town, like not too far from there. And so she's thinking about what I'm going to do about it. So she connected with artists tied to Burning Man and learned their process for designing and sculpting with metal. And she created this tribute to Lucy, Betsy, and Anarcha, these teenagers that were tortured and tested on by Marion Sims. So they're these gigantic metal statues. And the thing about Lucy, Betsy, and Anarcha is they were teenagers, but they took care of each other during this terrible ordeal. And because they had to actually aid in their own torture, they learned a lot also, and became nurses and midwives. I mean, they qualified, at that level. And the speculum that we use in gynecology was developed by Marion Sims from that research and other insights. So in a way, Lucy, Betsy, and Anarcha, these teenage girls, are innovators too. And so now on property in downtown Montgomery, there's a tribute, and they stand tall, and they look like us. They have big butts. They're made out of scrap metal, and all of these found objects. And in front of the installation is a like a round sculpture. It's actually a metal room that was designed by another artist, Deborah Douglas. And inside this room, you'll find scissors and knives and all kinds of sharp objects. So it's like artistically, like you can get a real sense of the vulnerability and the danger, but also the resilience tied to going through that ordeal. So when I was talking to Michelle about where the installation was, because Black people do beautiful things all the time, but the world doesn't always know, or they can't find it. Our communities are not often curated for cultural appreciation. People don't point them there. I'm like, so how are people gonna see this? She's like, it's downtown. I'm like, downtown where? She's like, oh, it's near the Equal Justice Initiative on land that my daddy owns. I'm like, girl, who is your daddy?
Right. Look, I'm like, who is your daddy?
Right, there you go. So her father is the first Black chaplain appointed to the Alabama State Prison System under George Wallace. Also, Michelle is the niece of Aurelia Browder, who is the named plaintiff in Gail v. Browder, a major transportation desegregation case. And so this is in her DNA. It's like in her cellular memory to manifest and amplify like this. And when we talk about the movement and organizing, there are some people who want to make it seem like people who beat the streets and protest, like they just decided to do something different and go out and scream all day. But it's really part of our art and the science of how to mobilize people. There's a strategy behind that. And so, there's that part of it, but then there's a policy part of it, and all of these pieces act together to foment change. And I think that it is also generational, and I think that each generation gets stronger and stronger because they have this organizational DNA embedded in the way the family talks, the way they move, not even like in an intentional way, but it's just how they are. So when I think about things that we're going through now, it's like in all the energy that we're gonna have to muster to withstand, the situation that we're in. I know that we have ancestral intelligence that we can pull on. Some people have AI, but we got AI.
Listen.
That's a bar. That's a whole bar.
I'm literally
That's a t-shirt.
I'm like drawing a tentacle right now to you. Because first of all, cellular DNA, just ancestral connection, and I feel like with maturity and growth and lessons and kind of just ingraining yourself in this material it creates that, right? You get more connected, you feel that, and I know that you address that in ways say with the Black Lives Matter movement in connection to what you found and what has already been done. And so for you to even dive more into that conversation, how are you saying this is how we can pave the way forward?
Yeah, so when I first started this, I thought it was just going to be a travel book. My friend is the one who actually introduced me to the publishing company. She started out as a freelance writer. She wrote for me, and we developed a friendship over many years and just mutual exchange of contracts. But then we became really good friends. And so, on a professional tip, I will tell you that there is something to be learned in not being an asshole for many, many years, because it does come back to you in a very positive way.
I told us not to burn our bridges. So I'm trying to stay in that.
Right, exactly. Oh God, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, we were talking about Black Lives Matter movement, say up today.
Yeah.
And then
so I thought it was just going to be a travel book, and so there's a lot of planning that goes in a book like this, massive Excel sheets, knowing what I'm going to do at every step of the way, pulling on every relationship. Then it started growing, and then I realized I needed to really zone in on the local flavor of the movement in each city that I went into.
First of all, pause on local flavor. Yes, I feel like we're so in sync. Now I'm kind of curious. I'm so where would you eat? Where would you drink?
Right.
What's that part look like?
Black people always say we're not a monolith, but that really does mean something. So the quality of the movement in the Mississippi Delta is different from the quality of the movement in Atlanta that had a big thriving middle class. In the Delta, they're really, really poor. But they are bound by a common experience, but there's just certain differences in that, and so in the way that they're able to organize and amplify and stand in their power is different depending on the social condition of those geographies. And so I wanted to make sure that I included timelines or something just to kind of get a sense of the vulnerabilities that each community faced, but the courage that they mustered in the face of that vulnerability. So it grew a little bit there, and then I started realizing that this is more than a travel book, and these white people at this publishing company might not realize that, but they're really nice, good white people from San Francisco.
San Fran, shout out San Fran. Good.
They really are good people. And very thoughtful, but I realized that this was a roadmap to future activism. And so when I talk about us having this built-up muscle that we build on generation after generation, when I talk about it being in our DNA, I view this as sort of like a entry-level guide to just getting a good survey class on what was going on, so you can figure out where you want to stand in the story, where you want to stand on the timeline, and what side of history you want to be on.
I'm having conversations now. My parents, like I was telling you, they're from different parts of Mississippi. And when I go back to Mississippi and having certain quality conversations around what what did it look like, and then what sides am I now on? Because there's parts of it, me, like a lot of it always leaned on the side of, say, writing and arts, because of my dance world and then like my writing world, and like I've been able to live in those two for a time, and that looked different though, say like you said, how my parents grew up in Mississippi and versus my family in Savannah versus my family that live up north, and like what do those stories look like, and then how do I step into that now? Right. And it's so encouraging to have pieces like this to then lean on. Definitely. I want to know though, like you said, flavors.
Yes.
What were we tasting? What did that world look like? Like when it comes to, say, your senses, your five senses.
I was so excited to eat. I am like internally an old Black woman because I make soul food all the time. I like whole food and healthy food. And something about since the pandemic, restaurant food just doesn't do it for me anymore.
Man, we was having that conversation about.
Like, is it made with love or is it made with vast indifference? I don't know. So I love food made with love, and to me, to eat the food in the South is to eat a memory.
To eat a memory.
Yeah, it's like being with my grandmother again. My father's mother, I spent a summer with her, and I think I stayed with her like 3 weeks, and every night after she washed the dishes, we would walk down to the country store and she would buy me ice cream cone. Every day!
What's your favorite ice cream? Like, do you have a go-to, or you would go with a blend?
Well, back then it was just a vanilla ice cream cone, but you know, I was very sheltered and cared for, and my mom didn't really want me eating candy and things, so I felt like I was like really getting away with something. But the love of a grandmother who just plies you with ice cream every day, and this person who loves you just because you exist, she don't have to take care of you like a mom or a dad. She just loves you because you exist. Like, how cool is that? Like, I don't have any children, but I think the thing I miss most about not having children is not being a grandmother. So I love the food, and the great thing about eating in the South is that the restaurant culture, Black-owned restaurant culture, is thriving. Actually, Memphis got a bump during the pandemic, so I'm really happy to report that. But like, I was in Little Rock, Arkansas at Lasses Inn, and it's a light blue colored restaurant. It's sort of at the foot of a interstate overpass, one of those interstates that interrupted the Black community and interrupted our development. I bumped into that story everywhere I went to. Lasses actually closed recently, very recently, but I got to go there and eat, and I had something called buffalo ribs. So I don't know if you've ever had buffalo fish. It's really good. It's only second to catfish for me. Of course, I like a good branzino, but
ain't catfish down south just way better? I grew up eating catfish.
Yeah, you have to get it down there. So they had buffalo ribs because they have big bones, and it's like fish, but it's like cut like a rib and fried. But the thing about Lasses Inn is that is where civil rights activists like Daisy Bates and all the people around her would meet and strategize. So to be able to go into a space and sit in the same seat that these people and just soak up all that energy in that air, to me that means something. Like, for some people it doesn't affect them, but it affected me. And then let's see, what else? Busy Bee Cafe in Atlanta.
Okay.
King, Abernathy, bunch of people.
Now you say cafe, because I'm a big tea gal and big sweets gal. Was Busy Bee one of those kind of spots?
Well, I mean, it's tight in there, and it's a line, and you can get good things like, I don't know if they have peach cobbler on the menu, but things like that, like those traditional Southern desserts. So there's a place in Arkansas too where you can get chitlins. Like, some people like still need that. I'm trying to think. Oh, Green Acres in Birmingham. So it's in the 4th Avenue Business District, and which is storied. It's just down the block from the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, 16th Street Baptist Church, and Kelly Ingram Park. Green Acres has been around for decades, so it's a family legacy. And I don't like really eat pork, but in the South I eat things. It's kind of like Vegas. It didn't happen. And I had the best fried pork chop sandwich there. So.
But see, I feel like going out south eating is like one of those things where it's like, this is, if I'm gonna eat this way, it's like feeling like it's from the motherland / just a different kind of like process or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's different.
And then like you say, you're eating it all the time.
Yeah, right. There's Pascal's in Atlanta that I really love. I have a beautiful picture of the plate I had in the book, and I put Slutty Vegan in there, and I added more because she's expanded. So I added Slutty Vegan in other chapters this time too, because I want to capture that excitement, and I want to get younger energy.
You just made me do a backwards flip, because for those who know me know I'm the plant-based girl of the crew. I've come to that because of just dietary things.
I understand, and your skin is showing the results. It's so beautiful.
Well done. Zoom in. Thank you. Never said it. Slutty Vegan. Do you have a favorite dish or like meal, or what's your go-to there?
I think it was a sloppy toppy. I like the fries. It really was the energy.
Yes.
I was in a long line around the corner, and I was making all these new friends in line. And I travel solo all the time, and you know I don't have a hang up about being by myself. And I just met all these really cool people in line.
Yep.
And the energy there is dope. And so I was just so happy to be able to center her in this book and put her in that story, because these things don't happen as a happenstance.
Yep.
Pinky Cole is able to be who she is because of the people who made this story possible. Slim and Huskies is a pizza, a hip hop flavored pizza joint founded by. Actually, it was founded in Tennessee, in Nashville, by 3 friends who went to TSU together.
Oh, that sounds very like a university. It's always something to be in a university style.
Huskies, Tennessee State.
Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
And so they're all over the place, and so they're in Memphis now. They're in a lot of different places. So I have Black-owned hotels in the book. I know we're talking about food, but I have a Robert Johnson property that is kitty corner to Mother Emanuel.
Okay.
And then Sheila Johnson, his ex-wife, she does like full luxury. She's in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, the food was like the best thing about this.
Right. It's like I'm tasting.
I'm a sweet tea girl.
Sweet tea. Yeah.
So I love
like good, authentic sweet tea.
Absolutely.
Down south is something special.
Oh, the 4-Way Grill in Memphis is in this book. So the 4-Way, a lot of activists and just celebrities would go hang out at the 4-Way. And I was there in 2018 during MLK 50. And I had dinner with Reverend Jackson and the head of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And so, you know, that's a really important thing, like the church connection. Also, like early in my career, I interned at the Memphis paper, and I was looking for a full-time job because I had graduated, but I took the internship, and cell phones weren't like a thing then. They had the bricks, but that wasn't like for regular people. And so I didn't want to pay for a phone to be installed at this boarding house I lived in a historic Black community called Orange Mound, the first Black planned community in the nation. And so I would get up and go to work 2 hours before I was supposed to be there, and leave 2 hours later to make sure I was supposed to where I was supposed to be when I was needed. And I didn't use their kitchen, so I ate at the 4-Way every day. I ate dinner at the 4-Way, and I could get a good, healthy meal made with love for $5. And so it has all that history. It's a part of my personal history and recent history, so the 4-Way is in there.
Yes, of course. That's, man, like having places that you literally have memories from childhood and then all throughout your life in the world that I know, the journalism world, and like the things that we be having times. So I'm saying,
believe in yourself.
Right? You know what I mean? And in those places they fuel you, and then having that added historical piece in there to to it just makes it even more special, and you never really know where that then leads to.
I am so thankful that I started my career in the South. I mean, I graduated and traveled around the country as part of a program, but my first full-time 401k job was in Mississippi. I ended up covering the county that my father grew up in, so I got to really deeply connect with my family and learn all that history. I also learned how to do things for myself, because when you're in the South, you do things for yourself, and you do things with your hands. And I always say, when the revolution comes, I want to be there, because they'll be able to build this thing back up. These people up here don't know.
Right. Listen. So I feel like, okay, so you took us on, we got our food, we got some of our sips and drinks, probably into that. You touched on a couple of hotels. Where are we headed next, like on this journey? Like,
well, I included a playlist. I put songs in every chapter. Because
there we go.
It's a road trip.
There we go.
Did you guys grow up like taking family road trips and you had particular music that you played?
Huge piece.
Yeah, my mom is a holy roller, so in her car it was gonna be gospel music.
Mama, I know all the CC whiners. I know all the just all.
Yeah. But with my dad, it was a lot of Isley Brothers, because my dad ran a business in Austin. He was a mechanic, and he and his cousins commanded the block just east of where MacArthur's is now. Devious Street. But so he played Isley Brothers. But I really love going on road trips with my Aunt Virgie and her husband Bill.
Okay.
And they would play the blues.
Okay.
And so it would Uncle Bill had to have a certain kind of music at a certain volume, sometimes too loud, but he was driving, so he was in charge. But I love all those family memories of being on the road with the music. So I wanted to create that environment for other people. So I included songs tied to the places. And so, like in the Mississippi chapter, we have Nina Simone, Mississippi Goddamn. There are several Phil Ox songs in the book. Because we did have a lot of white allies in the movement, and that was another way to kind of fold them in, like you would fold in the flavor in a nice filling or something, to fold them into the story, because they were there the entire time. And Joan Baez, there's the Carlton Reese Choir, which still exists, and it was founded in Alabama because the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights that was founded by the Reverend Fred Lee Shuttlesworth. They felt like they needed kind of music to move the movement. It adds a whole other layer, and it is a different kind of understanding, and it allows people to communicate on a certain frequency that you don't get in other ways. And so there are songs by the Carlton Reese Choir in the book, and I'm so happy to know that they're still around.
I mean, a lot of us, we grew up in church, from Baptist to Christian. Then I spent a good chunk of my time in like a mega church, like throughout my high school years. And then I will say now I'm part of just because I find a community, like the smaller communities within the bigger churches. And man, music is just such our love language. And definitely with our community, that's something that we love to just share. Like I was telling you, it's something that I feel makes us even more connected. It keeps us connected to, say, someone's body of work. So we will be sharing Deborah's playlist with everybody. We got to hear a couple of the selections on the playlist before we got into things. But so you have this revised, updated version, and like we were saying, there's so many probably different volumes, maybe part 2s, part 3s, part 4s that you can take this. For you, why was it necessary for a revised or updated version to come out? Like, I'm sure there was probably more / things that you didn't have in it that you wanted to include in it. So can you tell us a little bit more?
I mean, there are practical reasons. Like, this is a living book, and because I focus so much on Black-owned businesses, I needed to go document who didn't survive the pandemic, because some restaurants did not survive the pandemic. The way business is done has changed. Ours are vastly different. And so I had to go do like the tedious work of just updating all of that. But I also wanted to go back and capture new things. And so, like the Mothers of Gynecology exhibit that's in there, the Equal Justice Initiative, from the first time I wrote the book to this second edition in January, they've actually moved to a different building, their permanent building. And so, like, I had to go take new pictures so I could represent the real interest as it is now. And then they fleshed out some things, like they have more art in the actual museum. But they also have something called the Freedom Monument Sculpture Park, with all of these beautiful sculptures from designed by people in the diaspora, like Day Wiley, people like that. And then there's a I forget the name of it, but it's a big wall that has the names of every Black person in the first census after emancipation.
Right.
It's in Freedom Monument Sculpture Park. You can go to the Equal Justice Initiative, the Legacy Museum. A shuttle will take you to a boat, and you'll go down the Alabama River. You'll disembark. You can go see the sculptures and end up at this wall. It's gigantic, and through an app, you can search for. If you're tied to the story, you can search for your family's name. And so my family's name is on the back of the wall, way up in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay.
But I can see it like on my phone if I use the app. But to know that it's there, like it's the first time we were counted as human beings since emancipation. Like that's everything. So that's all of that is in there.
This is giving READefine field trip,
Right.
road trip / like wow.
Well, and also I put another vegan restaurant in there.
Oh,
in my memory, so for you.
Which one? What we call
It's called Plant Bay.
Oh, I've heard about Plant Bay.
Yeah.
I haven't been back out there though in a while.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is inspiring me to see who we can rally together to.
Well, I have this idea. I want to take a group of great migration journalists and artists on the trip and film it.
Well, I'm on the top of the list.
Okay.
And whoever else wants, yes.
Okay. I do want to turn the book into a show.
Got it.
And that's
what it is.
And that's the next thing that I'm working on. So I'll be filming in late August.
This is giving like National Geographic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, this is really wow. I feel like we could just let's hey. So we're all signing up.
It's like the Green Book. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, that's how that feels. This is how this feels. This is really phenomenal.
And I think we need these experiences. In my day-to-day practice as a professor, I talk about something called asset framing, which is what I learned from Travian Shorters. He's the founder of the BME communities. He's a Black male empowerment community, former vice president of the Knight Foundation. He, as you know, is a huge journalism funder. And it's a way of narrating communities based on their vision for themselves and not by the worst possible thing that has ever happened to them. And when you start asset framing, when you start taking an inventory of all the things that do go right or can go right, and not just telling the same story around that one bad negative data point, which is still true, it's just not the only story, you get a different kind of story. And so I produced 2 videos when I was in Boston, marrying the idea of asset framing with journalism. And so I covered health equity in Durham, North Carolina, in the Hayti community, a historic Black community, which is in this book. And in Little Village here in Chicago, a large Latino population. We hired Sherman Dilla Thomas, the urban historian, as the field producer, because I don't believe in helicoptering in, and I think that you need to leverage the expertise of local experts. And so I really want to continue building on modeling what it looks like to asset frame, and I think these kinds of tours are a great way to do that. And not only are they fun, but they're also intellectually rigorous.
Yeah, they really are. And really just gives us this information about the neighborhoods and the places and spaces that we're walking and living in every day.
Yeah.
And then finding even more purpose too within the spaces that we take up. And I think that too is a little bit of what we're trying to do here. And so I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you for those good questions.
And being here. Incredible. I just feel like this launched multiple other things that we have to look forward to. And yeah, like I said, we have our book. You guys can kind of pop around, shop, check things out, grab some sparkling water if you guys want to. But last thing, where can we check anything that you want to just share with, say, like our YouTube community about books or even things that you have coming up, which I know you have your
So this edition is out now, but if you'd like to pre-order, the next edition has got a whole new cover design. You can do that at Moon Travel or at Hatchet Publishing. I'm on all the socials at Deb Officially. I'm officially here, Deb Officially. I'm obsessed with TikTok. Hit me up on TikTok.
The TikTok rally.
Instagram, Facebook. I don't really, mess around with those ex people anymore, but
it's kind of like it's like our baby, so we're all still on there, and I still call it Twitter.
Yeah.
But like it's like I will say, my algorithm is still great.
It's still algorithming.
It's still the algorithm is still algorithming. So all of my people, all of the things that I, topics like my journals and all that, we're all. It still feels like Black Twitter.
Yeah.
It still feels like Black
I'm
Twitter.
still on Threads, and I am on Blue Sky. I'm gonna get more intentional about Blue Sky. I had cause to have to engage meaningfully recently, so I'm gonna get serious about it. And I'm gonna be developing a YouTube presence this fall.
The shorts are hit.